So I was laying here, and it's 2:45. My friend has a terrace near Buena Vista Park. It's nice to just lay here naked in the sun and take in the sun. I was feeling stressed out by the city yesterday, and I wanted to leave. I wanted to run away from the city where I could go be at peace. And I had loosely planned to be out of the city by Monday, but I gave a massage, and then I thought, well, it's Tuesday, I can leave then Tuesday. I had 2 massages to give on Monday, one of them didn't happen. Things are just flaky. It's normal. They're just flaky different in California than they are in New York. I guess things in New York aren't as flaky. They're just no, it's the same thing. It's like a non-committal desire game pandering kind of energy. Anyway, I was frustrated. And so I came in last night just being like, I want to get the fuck out of here. And he had some friends visiting who were going up to his country house. And so I was like, you can give me a ride up to Ukiah, because I was going to stay with this guy in Ukiah. These 2 guys that I know that I think would be supportive in different energy frame than what I've been in. And it'll be nice to spend time with them and nice to be up there and blah, 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 blah. So there's fleeing from and moving towards. So that's not bad. But anyway, his other house guests who were driving up said, oh no, the car's already packed with tons of stuff. We don't have any space, sorry. And that's just the way things are. And then I helped out for the evening, just being present, and thought, oh yeah, I don't need to run away, it's fine. Because I'm in a really beautiful place. I can just stay here for another day or 2. People are busy, they have stuff going on. It's not a problem. I can leave, I can go for a walk, schedule things similar times. But I'm in a really gorgeous place right now. I'm on a terrace that looks out at Buena Vista Park right now. Can you see my crotch? Oh, I don't really want that. Then I can't put this on YouTube. Sorry, hold on. I think that's safe, right? Yeah. All right. So I'm in this beautiful place. Up in the upper Haight. I'm on a terrace laying naked in the sun in San Francisco, looking out at Buena Vista Park. So I can just go walk in the woods, but I'm seeing trees, a lot of them. And there's a whole wall of city that's not city. It's not houses of people living in it. It's a park. It's trees. It's a pretty good park, too. As far as its wild nature feel goes. And it's, well, I don't know if it's still a cruising park, but it used to be a cruising park. And that's always kind of a nice energy to have. Kronos Pan dancing around in your park. Keeps it alive and vital. But anyway, I came out here to lay naked in the sun, and I had this feeling that I was like, oh yeah, well, you can't leave things in an undignified way. You're just not that person. And I felt this kind of clear understanding of I had stuff I had to do, as far as like I had to help him finish something with mailing something that I instigated and just need to wrap that up. And I also tinctured a whole bunch of herbs for him that he wouldn't pour them out. They would just sit there forever if I didn't process them and finish that. So I was like, just spend another day here and do that. But it's also not a place you have to run away from. It's nice. It is what it is, though. It's nice. It's got a beautiful view, a good place to see the sunset, a nice place to lay naked in the city, a nice place to walk up and down hills, nice neighborhood. The Hate's expensive, though. You think hippies turn into yuppies? I don't know. money gets more expensive. But as I had this whole understanding that I needed to actually finish this stuff to be in dignity with leaving properly, so then the path will open more sensically. I had a clear vision of that, kind of in a flash, and then a kind of clear understandings of layers of dimensions that I thought, I can express that really clearly, and that's really a part of this project, is expressing my understandings of the shape of existence, and some of it's through narrative and some of it's just exposition. So instead of making every description is a metaphor of the truth, because the truth cannot be said, it can only be being. It's the only way you can truly be something, or the only thing that is true is the being of something. Any expression or explanation or perception isn't entirely true. It's always got some willful ignorance in there. Playing the game. Oh, look, I'm outside of you and seeing you. When there is no outside of anything. So even that's kind of a metaphorical description of a perception of a dimension. But what I was specifically wanting to express was this idea of, this is not the ultimate truth, but let's say the ultimate truth of all existence is emptiness, nothingness. So if we look at this from a Hindu's standpoint, you have the idea that all the gods create all the things, and all the gods collapse into other gods until they collapse into one main god or overlord, and then that himself is an illusion of the infinite everything nothingness. And then nothingness isn't nothingness in a total void sense, except that it is a total void because everything is at balance and at peace. However, it's not to think of an annihilation, because it just returns everything to infinite primal potential, perfect primal potential, infinite perfect primal potential. So that's the outside, the ultimate truth. It's expressed in Buddhism through the anatta, that as well. And it's funny, in Christianity they would just say everything is God. So the outside of everything is God. And in science, if we talk of science, because that's a religion for a lot of people, if we would say there was a Big Bang, which is theory because we weren't there, who the fuck knows, that there is a Big Bang, and before the Big Bang there was a nothing. Or was there? There was a field, there was an infinite void, and then everything blew up into it and started being. So that's a scientific way that is popular in our culture. Talk about the outside of everything is nothing. The infinite truth of everything is nothing. Everything springs out of nothing, and therefore it is couched in nothing. Its foundation is nothing. Its essence is nothing. And a useful meditation is putting oneself into that paradigm and living in it. I mean, that's an interesting occupation. It's something that sages and gurus and Buddhas can do. And some of them are quick enough to translate between that constant perception of reality, of understanding that everything, the fundament of everything is nothing, and interacting with people and telling stories. Oh, again, I was tincturing out all these tinctures that I made, and I drank some of them, and I'm a little stoned again. So inside of the nothing, there are lots of dimensions of truth. I sometimes refer to them as frame stories for reality. When you're in your reality and you want to talk to somebody about who you are or what just happened, there's a whole bunch of assumptions that are in play when you start to deliver your monologue. who you are and what just happened, the history of your life, the reasons for things, why things are happening, what's even happening right now, telling these stories. There's a whole bunch of assumptions that have to happen, and some of them depend on assumptions that are so complex and pervasive that they're imperceptible to most beings, unless they specifically go looking for it, and even then it's pretty hard. An example would be that you know that at all moments there is silence in the room. You might be hearing my voice, you might be hearing the sounds of cars going by me, you might be hearing the recording of cars or sounds going by me, you might be hearing cars go by you or wind in trees. So spend a moment and hear what the sound field is that you're in. Even if you have headphones in, you might hear muffled city sounds outside of your head. And understand that underneath all these sounds is silence. Not even underneath, but totally surrounding all these sounds, encompassing. And so take a moment now and listen to the sounds you were hearing, and then stop listening to the sounds you're hearing and listen to the silence underneath them. Which is a tricky giving respect to something. I understand that that's a sound of a car. And giving it permission to fade into the background. You're not going to not hear it. It's just not the focus of your attention. See if you can focus your attention on the actual silence. And if that's seeming to be difficult, you could also stretch your attention by focusing on a sound that's in the background, maybe intermittent, maybe very muffled, and see if you can focus all of your attention on a background sound. So, in a science paradigm, you could say inside the nothing is this ever-expansing, ever-cooling smattering of matter, some of it superheated in the form of stars, burning out or creating. Masses of gravity swirling around them, cooling exoplanets, planets and exoplanets, asteroids swirling around. There's lots of stuff, and there's lots of void, lots of vacuum. Inside of that, there's our planet, which we know somewhat about. I mean, you can say inside of that is our specific galaxy, our specific solar system, our specific star, our specific planet. And within that, there's this specific person, this specific location, this specific time in this person's existence, in this story's arc. There's this specific day, this specific month, this specific year of the life, coinciding with all of the specific frame stories relating to another person. Childhood they had, the religion they grew up in, the first time they were frightened or learned to lie or distrust someone else. All the way all these things come together. This is partially when I talk to people about astrology and they're like, well, I don't believe in astrology. I'm like, it's not about believing in anything. It's a clock. It's a way of looking at time in relating to just some ancient system of metaphors and archetypes that can be extrapolated and manipulated kind of infinite ways. But it's time. Like there's a sun hand and a moon hand. Those are really important. And then there's the rolling of the Earth horizon hand, or the whole field rolling. There's all the other planets in our solar system that can be, well, the ones that can be seen with the naked eye. and all the fixed stars that can be seen with the naked eye, these are all hands and fields in which are interacting in multiple dimensions and can be perceived and used to track time. And if time, well, on one level, time is completely arbitrary and illusory, but on many other levels, time is not arbitrary and not illusory. There are stories about time being started and time ending. There are stories about the use of time, the need of time, a dimension in which action is allowed to happen, time, changing time and space, changing space, the dimension of space, time changes space, so that events can be experienced. It's the flicker rate of the GUI, that is to say graphical user interface, or dimension, or no, graphical, sure. I don't think any word can adequately express the universal creation of the matter show. The matter show. This is the matter show, where a phone has been created with a camera in it, with a cell phone, with a Wi-Fi, with it connected to the universe, which, you know, all the technology that creates these devices that create this, that you can perceive this on, but also the sense of self and the sense of room and the sense of electricity, any of the senses of stories to be believed in. What is the television called for that? What is the computer that is generating that illusion? The flicker rate, like 30 frames per second, 24 frames per second, 60 frames per second. Ooh, really HD. The Buddhists say it's 17 trillion moments per second. And again, this is the frame story of religion. Buddhists say that every mote of existence, every atom, every quark, neutrino, proton, electron, every plant, every person, every building, completely ceases to exist and gets recreated about 17 trillion times a second. So, you know, your eye can be tricked at 30 frames per second, and 60 frames per second is perceptible, though sometimes not in a conscious way, but in a way it feels. Not a visual way, but a way it feels. If you see the 16 frames per second, you can really tell how wonky that is. All of those moments have a meaning in various dimensions. Where they intersect, the stuff they are made out of is stories, beliefs. And where the beliefs intersect, there's a node. Maybe that node is a neutrino or a quark or an electron. There are infinite things that exist, probably, that don't even have stories. Not stories knowable by people. Stories only knowable through existing, through experiencing what it's like to be a living rock. The simplicity of a blade of grass, a butterfly, a human, for all we fucking know. How quickly my perception shifted into the dignity of tasks that need to be completed, obligations, generous promises implied, implicit promises in generosity, kindness, and love, friendly universal love, specific to a specific person, place, time, love, duty, joy, things to be completed in dignity before turning the page. And behind all that's nothing. And it's useful to touch into that nothingness. Yesterday I felt so frustrated and sad and lonely and driven by a demon. And I went on about it for a few minutes on a video, and I didn't find it very interesting and stopped. But in those moments of suffering, it's just forgetting that background story where everything's nothing. It's getting snarled in some tangle of meaning somewhere. Some tangle of meaning. I am this person who's had these experiences and felt this way and believed this and wanted this and got dissatisfied. And it hurt. And there was suffering. And the cause was known. There was a solution. You could let it go. But, sometimes you don't want to. Want to hold on tight. And I was thinking earlier today about people who are content to have a good time, just be entertained. I think genuinely content to watch reality TV shows and eat at the same chain restaurant every time. And these aren't bad people. They're genuinely content on a level of existence that they're just not worrying about certain tangents. I don't even need to give them meaning because they're not worrying about them. I was thinking about people who have had a clear idea that they just want a life where they have a lot of money, and if they have a lot of money, they'll be happy, and they work jobs they don't really like, but they specifically go to because they make the money, and enough money to be able to do whatever they want to do. And some of them are very happy and satisfied with that. Some of them are successful at that. What they do for money is just what they do for money, and they don't care. It's not complicated. I mean, it's just work, you got to do it. He who doesn't work doesn't eat. Tu non fala, tu non mangio, es levorna, es non. That's what it is. Chi non lavorna, no mangio, non mangia, non mangia. It's funny to actually try to say this to a person. I'm not trying to say this to a person. I'm saying this to any person who listens to this, but I'm trying to say it to a recording device. I'm practicing Italian every day and on Duolingo and occasionally through Spotify. Just yet, occasionally. It takes a while to develop new habits. I played an idiom chapter today that on Duolingo that was like, Chi non lavrono, I don't remember that word properly, non mangia. Chi non lavorna, non mangia. Chi non lavorna, non mangia. Stutter. Stutter in the insecurity of the language. Chi non lavorna, non mangia. How do you speak in something? You have to speak in it. Crazy. Anyway, he who does not work does not eat. Some people work to eat. Nothing wrong with that. You just do the work and you eat. Some people didn't really care about making money. They weren't worried about it. So again, it's not like, I don't want to make money or I don't want to be able to support and take care of myself. That's not a consideration. They just weren't worried about it. There's no negative impulse there. They just were very clear that they thought it'd fill their life with happiness to spend all day being a veterinarian, or a park ranger. Maybe even a computer programmer. Who knows? There might be people who really just think of that as something that brings them joy. Playing with computers is fun. They don't do it for money. They're just like, oh, that'd be so fun to spend all my time doing that. Fixing cars. Something you do for fun anyway. Making movies. Something you do for fun anyway, and then you just make a life out of it, and then you've been doing it for 20 years. I guess, if you don't make a lot of money, if you don't spend a lot of money, you don't have to make a lot of money. If you know how to, you just don't have to spend a lot of money. There's so many ways you don't have to spend a lot of money. And me, child hard living is easy to do. I've spent so much of my life in existential crisis. It's just how I roll, I'm a light-hearted, hippie, existentialist, crisis philosopher guy who's really good at sex. Whoa. Enjoys the sensual world and respects it for being a total illusion. Feel the sun, feel the sky, feel it all dissolve away into the infinite. Listen to the emptiness behind the projections. Listen to the silence behind the illusions of the sounds, behind the actual sounds. Feel the space in your body, the emptiness between each atom, between each electron and neutrino. Identify with the emptiness that you occupy. And just as much as you can identify with the emptiness you occupy, identify with the emptiness around. Hey, why not infinitely? How big is that? Do you have to have a boundary? Certain dimensions, it's very important to have a boundary, but can you practice not? You can feel the edges, but they're not yours. Yeah, they're you, but they're not yours. Delicious.
Yeah.
Illusory and delightful.
Okay.